So thank you so much for introducing Remote. And as you said, we can also get the panelists here and give us a warm applause. Nice. Thanks for joining. And as we saw already, a few talent leaders on this panel today. So we will focus on talent acquisition. And before we dive in, I would just like to hand over to you to just say a few words about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Is this working? Yes. Hi, I'm Glenn Ferguson. I'm managing talent acquisition for Katawiki, so all of business recruitment, so anything non-tech, non-engineering at the moment. I'm also a DE&I lead for Katawiki, so I lead a lot of the initiatives, projects, planning, strategy as well. I'm originally from Australia, if you're trying to place the accent. I spent many years as an actor, so I tried to get rid of that accent, and now it's back. So that's basically me.
I think I'm the next one. So, Luis, thanks a lot for introducing Remote. Now you all know where I work. So, basically, I'm the director of talent acquisition. So, all things hiring fall under my bucket. I joined Remote 3 years ago when the company was 200 people big. This year, I'm pretty confident that we will be 2,000 people big. So I believe that my team has something to do with that. So witnessed a lot of growth scaling, and I would say that this is pretty much where my expertise and passion lies. So I spent all my career within the tech industry, helping companies to grow and scale globally. So that's me.
Hi all, my name is Mario Schaap. I am originally from Argentina. Now I'm living here for now 6 years. Time flies. I have been working in human resources for 15 years in international environments, and I specialize in tech environments. Moreover, I am the CEO and founder of 2 companies. On the one hand, Coach for Expats. I am there a global career coach, and I help foreigners to land new jobs. And on the other side, I have the HR chapter. I am the CEO and founder there as well, and I provide HR services from end to end to help companies to scale basically. So, yep, looking forward to this panel.
Nice. Thank you so much for the introductions. And I would love to dive in already and speak about international hiring. I think that's, of course, like standard practice for all of us. But I would love to understand how are you actually identifying countries where people are based, where you're hiring for. Maybe Anastasia, just like starting with you, because your team is quite international and you have quite a lot of experience there.
That's true. So we have. If I have to share some numbers, I think at Remote, currently we have team members in more than 80 different countries, so that's quite a lot. In the meantime, when I think about your question, I think there are 2 perspectives. One is our internal HR people team perspective, because we are hiring globally, and definitely that's a blessing for my team, because we don't need to bother ourselves with where we will go and search for talent. Basically, the entire world is ours. And in majority of cases, whenever we post a role, we never know where we will end up hiring a person, which is great. In the meantime, being a business that enables companies to hire, manage, and pay team members all over the world, we've been doing a lot of consultancy work with helping companies to identify what are the next destinations for them and like what would be their expansion strategy. And I think when it comes to choosing your next destination to go to, something that we always try to bring to the customer's table is really taking into account not only the demand that you have internally and also talent supply that different countries can offer, because we've been talking a lot about this, and I'm sure that we will be talking even more about that, but also what are kind of like the hidden costs of hiring someone in a specific location, because this can bring a completely different perspective when it comes to cost of employment and the benefits packages that you should offer as an employer, what are the potential risks when you need to offboard someone. So this is the expertise that we have internally, and I believe that our customers benefit from. And maybe the last thing that I have to add, whenever I'm talking to the customers, I think that when you hear about remote and like all remote policies and global companies, sometimes you feel that there is a perception that you might be the Netherlands-based company, and then the next day you should go and hire people in Brazil, Japan, and all of these very faraway locations. But for me, I think that the most important part is staying focused and like normalizing the fact that it's fine to start small, and maybe to try out your new go-to-market strategy, you should really prioritize 1 or 2 locations and start from there rather than trying to really conquer the world. So that's my take.
Thank you. Glenn, what about you? How do you decide where to look for talent?
Yeah, for us at Katawiki, we're a marketplace, so we have buyers and sellers. So that, in essence, demands a lot of our hiring needs. So if there's a potential supply line we'd like to open up, we need account managers, we need BDRs there as well. So the business actually defines what's attractive for us and where we'd like to go. That being said, they're not always right. We do need to have yeah, well, there's a couple. No, I'm thinking specifically, what if that market's saturated? What if every other company has already moved there and it's not interesting for us to open up a hub there or to hire people there because it's just too saturated, the competition's too fierce, we're not competitive, we have no brand in that specific country. And so, we'd use tools like LinkedIn Insights. I don't know, there's a few others out there that people would also use to have some data with us, to arm ourselves and be like, okay, this is what you want, this is when you can expect it, this are the timelines, and kind of push back a little bit just to sense check that these business decisions really are right for us, because then talent acquisition can run around trying to fulfill a business need. If it's not possible, then we can't really make magic happen. So from the business, but also we'd always push back with some data there to see, is it really feasible, I would say.
Makes sense. I also love the fact that the business is not always right, so maybe you could share some examples later today.
I could almost share an example now. We recently opened up a Portugal hub, right? But I think a lot of probably some people in the audience have opened up a Portugal hub as well. So it's a pretty saturated market. It was tricky to make it work. We've been doing that now for a year, and now it works. It's great. We spent a lot of hard work pushing that agenda, but it wasn't as easy as the business made it out to be. So it was tricky. Yeah.
I feel identified with an example of Portugal because I needed to create the HR department from scratch in Portugal, so I feel related. So I feel your pain there because sometimes in some locations it's quite difficult to find good talent, and then you have some HR members maybe in the team that are saying, no, we need to look for talent only in the new location, when it's possible to combine. And for me, this is key also because it helps to the multiculturality of the team from a day perspective. So from my point of view, I think that we need to think what the business needs. We need to find the right balance between what the business can offer and what the business needs, basically. And from there, we can think together with the candidates, okay, what is and what things we can be flexible, what we can offer, what we can find in terms of talents in every location. And from there, we have many options, not only to look for talents at the location by itself, also we can explore options like the employer of record or another options that or remote work, contractor agreements, etc. So basically, in terms of coming back to your question about where to find the talent, I think that it depends about the kind of profiles that we are looking for. If we go for instance, to look for talent at universities, in the case that we are looking for a trainee level, for instance, or we need to create a strategy that can work for the business to find talent, but also work for the people, because something that I will mention again later on, but what candidates are looking for, for nowadays is flexibility. And if we can offer as an employer flexibility, we can find talent everywhere.
Thank you so much. Apparently, Portugal is also a topic. I spoke with 3 other people about Portugal today, so maybe we need another roundtable related to Portugal. But you mentioned flexibility now, so that this is super important for candidates. In general, what would you say are things which are interesting for candidates? What does resonate? What doesn't resonate? What do you see there? You mentioned flexibility. What else is there?
Thank you for your question. On the one hand, what I feel as a career coach, because I get questions from what I need to request to the company, from what I need to ask to companies, like in terms of benefits, and also what are the possibilities during the hiring process. So basically, what the candidates are asking in terms of candidate experience, on the one hand, is to be listened. They need someone who help them during the process, because emigrating, maybe many of you have been in that position. Emigrating is not an easy decision. It's a process, and they need to be listened. And during that process, they need flexibility because of the moving by itself, moving from one country to the other, or maybe because of because of family reasons, or maybe because of their former employer, but they need flexibility and they need to be listened.
I think from my side, what I'm seeing at the moment is it used to be when you're relocating people or you're maybe sourcing from another country, they're really interested in salaries, comp and ben, what are the tax benefits, why should I move, security for my family. But I think in the recent tech layoff landscape, people are really looking for reliability. Can I trust this employer? Do they have a good reputation? What are their employee reviews saying? Am I going to be laid off in 6 months if I move across the world for this employer? So it's even more now about employer brand, I would say, and creating a sense of trust with the candidates than ever before. Because I know in my next move, I'd rather move for something stable than take such a big risk and then be laid off in 6 months, especially looking at the TA space the last 2 years. It's been a bit dicey. So, yeah, trust.
Yeah, I would agree. Also, what I hear from other companies, and at the same time also talents, because I think that really changed massively in the last 2 to 3 years. Anastasia, is there anything what you're seeing?
No, I would say that great points raised. So definitely flexibility on one side, but also, which is for me a little bit counterintuitive, reliability and stability. When we were discussing initially this topic, I think that one of the aspects that we were looking at is how expat community perceives different benefits and what comes across as a real perk for expats. And my observation and kind of anecdotal feedback coming from All Remote company is that the expat community might be maybe the only one that is not that responsive to all remote work. Because when I think about relocating somewhere, and it sounds like we have a lot of expats here, including myself, you know that you really want to blend in the local community, you want to socialize. And something that I experienced myself when I relocated with remote, is that there is nothing physical, there is no anchor that ties you to the country. So I think that this is something that, if I'm thinking about struggling with bringing some top talent, and especially expat talent, so this is what I'm seeing on our side.
I think that's a super interesting point, because in the end, the job is also part of integrating into the new country. It can also be the language, but also the job. So I think that's a very interesting point you're making. A follow-up question related to what you see, what the talent wants. Where do you see the competition going? We heard now, flexibility, potential also of an office, and then the trust, the kind of safety. What do you see are other companies doing where talents are then potentially saying, oh, that sounds a little bit more interesting. I might rather take another offer. maybe in the Netherlands, thinking of
I
the
think also
30%
that
ruling.
yeah. Also, tax benefits are always good, but I think that it depends about what the employer offers during the hiring process. But I think that it's important to be there as an employer, and always there is a way to make things work. I feel that this is my first approach.
I think, from my perspective, we've seen a bit of. We sometimes lose out if it's on speed, and this sounds strange, but there's been a huge focus on quality of hire, which is fantastic, but sometimes that can make hiring managers and recruiting partners a little more hesitant or a little more cautious around hiring. And I've noticed sometimes, and this is not really something that employer is really offering someone, but if you can still lose out on speed, like this may be a more employer-driven market, but don't forget that other companies are still moving twice as fast. They're still getting your offers out, and it can be the case that you can lose out on that. And the other thing I'm noticing a little bit more is a bit of a ruthless drive towards rewarding high performance. Even like with L&D programs or chances to go to conferences and events, I'm seeing a bit of more of a segregation in some companies saying, yeah, we're a high-performing company, even in an anti-sell, and like, don't come here if you are X, Y, Z. Come here if you're this. I don't know if it's right, but I'm definitely seeing a trend in this kind of job descriptions and what we're losing out on sometimes. Yeah.
Great point. So when I think about competition, even with all ups and downs that we've seen in the economy recently, for me, employer competition is becoming more global. I think that this is something that we should always keep on the back of our minds as talent acquisition teams, because you might lose a great candidate and an offer to a company that is not necessarily based in the same city, in the same country, and sometimes it comes completely out of the blue. So I think that's kind of like the switch of the mindset for employers. And another thing with what we discussed about what candidates are looking for in their employers, I think that your voice as an employer is becoming more and more important, and how you talk about yourself, how you position yourself. And once again, thinking about remote, like we introduced our CEO, like Job, who is a great persona, and this becomes almost like a new channel of talent attraction, because we tend to receive a lot of interest at remote, like it's 30,000 applications on a monthly basis. So it's more than a lot, but it's really about like, what is our voice? What are the values that we translate and the expectations that we set for the team members who are about to join us?
So I would like to add that it's always about budget. So in a practical term, so there are companies which can offer more interesting benefits. For instance, here in the Netherlands or in the countries or cities where there is a conflict with the housing. So, for instance, there are companies who offer, which offer housing, temporary housing, or more solutions, or instead of 1 month of a hotel, maybe 2 or 3, not only for the person, also for the family. So we need to analyze the full package and always to look at the global trends, especially at the regional level, but also what is going on outside. So because especially expats are not looking only one country normally. They are taking a look at what will be the smartest step in their career, even if it's the Netherlands, Germany, the US, Japan, etc. So we need always to take a look at the global picture, also because normally the companies want to become the employer of choice, and if they cannot offer a good candidate experience or employee experience, then it will be quite difficult to become the employer of choice. So, and in that case, to get the best talent for the positions that they have open.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point because here, for example, in Amsterdam, you're not competing with another employer in Amsterdam. You might compete with an employer in Berlin, in London, etc. So I think that's a very good point. And then also, yeah, the tax benefits, for example, come into play because if here's like a tax benefit of 30% and in Germany we don't have that, and in the UK relocation in general is expensive or housing prices are more expensive, that of course is a decision factor. And I think like specifically for expats, things like relocation support, visa support, housing packages definitely play a key role if they decide, okay, like do I make that move or not? So that was interesting and actually also good bridge to my next question, because I was wondering when global mobility teams come into play when you're making an international hire.
I can start. My perspective will be most likely different from others because as remote, we also have our mobility team, but it's not the part of the people team because this team serves our customers in the first place, which means that the people team is also a customer of this team. So something that is, I think, very interesting about all remote companies or like hybrid companies is that relocations there, in the majority of cases, at remote, it will be 100% of cases, are actually driven by employees rather than the business. Because if we are working remotely, you can work from anywhere. We don't need you to be in London or Amsterdam or like whatever the place is. So this means for us that we see relocations as a benefit, and that's the way we position these to our internal team members, which means that with the company growing and getting some maturity, we really had to put a lot of thought and effort into designing our relocation policies, because it's amazing when you have this flexibility, when you can move elsewhere, especially when your company has this amazing internal resource to support this relocation, but this could be easily abused, right? And you also, as an HR team in the first place, don't want to see your people moving around all the time, maybe twice, 3 times a year. So that's something that we've been very much focused on over the past year or something, like putting policies in place to make sure that every relocation has kind of like some business sense in it.
I guess the answer's similar for me. I was quiet at the start because I was like, we don't have a mobility team. we do it all ourselves. But it's true. We come together as a whole people team to build these policies and structures in place to make sure that it serves everyone in the people team from all different aspects. And yeah, I agree. Policies have been key in keeping that standardized, because we may have 300 requests out of 750 people or 850 people that want to move somewhere. It doesn't always make sense for the business. But I would say that, yeah, policies are there to streamline that process and to make things clear and for everybody. But for every policy, there's an exception. You need to be human in your approach. We're working with humans. People have a human desire and human needs. So I think as long as you're being measurable and kind of measured in your response to requests like that, it's, yeah.
Regarding that point, I think that, of course, that the very large companies can have a global mobility department. Otherwise, it's the task of HR, and everything fall in HR always at the end. But I think that we need that the policies are standardized globally. But as Glenn mentioned, we need always to think in the case by case, because someone moving from one point to the other is always a special case with many considerations. Maybe someone with this disability or in a special situation that we need to consider or approve extra budgets. So we need always to take a look at what is convenient for the business. Again, to my first point, thinking what the company can offer and what the company needs, and then to try to make the right balance. And I have a funny story about global mobility, a very short one, but there was a time that the manager told to his team member, yeah, you can move to everywhere, and you can work from the moon if you want. HR never knew that. So we need to ensure that all the global mobility practices are well known across the company, because otherwise we can have a bad use of the global mobility policies and what the employees expect from us, because it's not only in the time of the hiring, also it's about when we have the employee already working at our company and then they want to move, and then the problems appear.
Yeah, and I think like policies are important. We actually do monthly roundtables with our customers because everyone is rebuilding their policies right now. So it's interesting that you also touched upon that. Last question for today, and it's of course about the future, 2025. And I would love to hear your predictions about hiring internationally in the next year. Are things changing? How do you see things develop next year? Big question.
Yeah, not a lot of predictions. I think that we are seeing the market bouncing back, and these are where my hopes lie, being the lead of the talent acquisition team. So I do think that market is picking up, so we'll see more global competition, as we, I think, are all in agreement, competing with companies outside of your own location. So that would be kind of like my forecast for 2025.
I think pretty polarizing between return to office, not return to office, hybrid, what we're going to do. I think some decisions are going to have to be made, I would say, soon regarding that. So I'm really curious to see how that plays out and what talent we can scoop from less desirable policies, etc. Interesting. That and definitely the implementation of AI. I mean, I know there's an AI regulation act coming out of the EU. It's going to affect us all. Pay transparency is coming. So there's going to be a lot of changes, I'd say, in the next year. And I hope to have some more solid, a solid feeling about exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to respond to that in a meaningful way. It's a bit ambiguous at the moment, but these things are coming. So, yeah.
I think that things have been hectic a bit this 2024. Probably it will happen the same in 2025 because it needs to stabilize. Considering the work that we do in terms of international headhunting at the HR chapter, what we have seen is that there was a switch from permanent jobs to more interim jobs many times. So we need to see if this tendency continues, or if finally the market will stabilize. Because of course we need to understand what the business need in terms of temporary workforce or permanent workforce, and also to share expectations with the candidates. Because, for instance, we will not move a candidate for 6 months. It doesn't make sense. So we need always to think in terms of the long-term decisions for candidates and for companies.
Thank you so much. And of course, we had AI, so I was waiting for that. Definitely a trend for the upcoming years, I would say. So thank you so much for joining me on this panel today. Thank you so much for all the great insights. Join me in giving a warm applause to these 3 panelists.